I leave tomorrow morning with Arthur. Oh, but don't worry. We won't have any offspring. We won't even wind up together. Arthur's just my way out.
Christina, you're wrong.
Well then, too bad for me.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing? Ooh.
Did you just call me Martin?
Martin? No, Bartek. Bartek. Is that Polish for Martin?
Are you Ryan?
Am I what? Sorry?
Ryan.
Ryan?
Yeah.
Yes.
You were starting to make jokes and we didn't say your name.
I didn't say any jokes.
I got agitated.
I didn't say any jokes. There was no jokes. I just said statements.
What was your dumb question you just asked? Sorry.
Is there a Polish... Is Martin... Is that Polish for Bartek, or Bartek is Polish? Is there a Polish name for Martin? Is there an equivalent?
Just say it with a Polish. I had a friend named Martin.
Oh, there you go. See, with
Yeah.
a Polish accent, just a
Yeah.
little flavour. Random question: are they Polish in this movie? The Martin family, because they bring up Poland at some point.
One of the last lines in the movie is like, "Are you Polish or something?"
I thought Udo was like a Czechoslovakian name, but maybe I'm wrong.
I read somewhere that he was like Lithuanian or something. So
He's
it's somewhere in the region.
What was his accent, Bartek? You're the accent guy. Figure it out. Was it Polish? Did it ring true to you?
I have deduced that it is European.
Well, we are European in some way, shape, or form, as well as Australians, because we are Spit and Polish Presents, a podcast to you. We are spitting young gentlemen. We both happen to be Polish. That was just a coincidence when we met each other. You said, Ryan, that's a really weird name. Is that Polish? And I said, Bartek, that's a common name. Must be Polish. And we're joined at the hip ever since. And we talk about movies that come recommended.
Talk about plums.
What was that, sorry?
We talk about plums.
Talk about plums. What does that mean for those who aren't in the know of Polish culture?
I don't know. I was just being random.
Lol, random.
It's not like it's Śliwki or Śliwka, which is like your last name, Śliwinski.
Yes, Slawinski can have a connotation to plums, while your name, last name, does that have anything other than being hard to pronounce?
I'll let you know when I find out. The eternal Kasprzak mystery.
If you open up the name, is it still alive inside? Yeah. We are actually here to talk about something important, a movie that came recommended, and it's October, which is the spooky time of year. We actually started our podcast probably around this time, all of those years ago.
It's like October 20-ish, yeah.
We did not consider to start with a spooky movie. We just started with Paul Giamatti classic Big Fat Liar.
I mean, we've made jokes about like, oh, he turns blue. That's like a monster.
It has Urkel in it. That scares me. It has Jaleel White, voice of Sonic the Hedgehog.
We haven't seen him since. It's been 8 years since we did that episode.
Has he done any movies? I know he does TV, but does he do movies outside of playing himself? Or Urkel? Or Sonic?
He wasn't even in Dickie Roberts, which we only did that 9 episodes after, but...
Don't make me open the can of worms that is Dickie Roberts. Let's introduce some guests, because for Spooky Month, we wanted to bring on some spook spurts to talk about a movie with us, and we are joined by the... those troublesome boys over at the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast. It is Sean and Ben. Sean and Ben, you are here. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
I would say that Sean's a little bit more of a spook spurt than me.
Yeah, I live in the shadows, and I love the taste of blood.
I am,
and I love to smear it all over myself, and I love to watch. I love to watch blood pervert movies. So this is in the genre of that. So this is great for me. I'm having a great time.
Well, I like to watch movies with boys I immediately fall in love with. So this actually worked out for me too.
I am also. To be fair, I'm the same way. I love. Yeah.
Personally, I thought it was nasty.
This is a nasty movie. I love nasty movies. I love that. I have a night sometimes where if I'm alone and I just in my apartment, I'm just like, I want to put on something nasty. I need something that's going to dirty me up.
So for all of our listening people out there, we are going to be discussing the George A. Romero film Martin, which is his take on a vampire story. That's how I pitched it to you last time, Bartek. That was just a little log line, which can make people think a certain thing when going in, but it's a character study.
Is it more Dracula or is it more Vampire's Kiss?
Yeah, which one is it going to be? It's either one or the other. And we are going to be getting into details of this. If one has not watched Martin, which is not unusual, this is one in which you have to know Romero's catalog to really check it out. I don't think it's reached those echelons, but it's also difficult to find. As with a lot of Romero's films, there's always distribution problems. His producing partner wants ludicrous amounts of money for distribution, so that's why things are difficult. That's why if you look up Dawn of the Dead, there's a million different reissues of it, and some of it's not the movie at all. So lots of craziness here. So Martin is available on YouTube currently, so if you want to give it a watch for yourself, recommend that you do. Bartek, how would you go into pitching this in a little bit more detail? Someone comes up to you on the street, pulls at your collar and says, "I need to know about Martin, the film." What would you tell them?
I tell them, well, it's actually on YouTube, and I think it's not even age restricted, despite the fact that it has BOOBS in it.
It also has pussy in it too. That happened too.
I don't remember any cats.
He was said to look like remind.
He was
reminded
us
compared
to a cat. He was like Anthro. I would say that Martin is a melancholic character study about a young man who is potentially he's had a hard life. He's potentially on the spectrum, and he is potentially a vampire. And he's part of a family that has a long history of being ashamed of having vampire relatives. I think he's like the third one, or like he's one of three currently living,
alive,
or something
yes.
like that. And it's made clear throughout the movie, but it's highly likely that he is not a vampire. He's just part of this crazy family that's kind of this one's a hard one to describe, off the bat.
Yeah.
That has influenced the way that he lives, and he has like a two-way attitude about like playing up the fact that he might be a vampire, and also it's not real. Look, I'm eating garlic and stuff like that. But he does have he is genuinely a serial killer.
He has a bloodlust.
Who has a lust for blood, like literally drinking it.
And being horny by it.
Yeah, so it's kind of seeing all of these elements all in this one character. And in a really weird way, it's kind of like a late slice of life for this guy, seeing like he's moved to this town where he's living with his elderly cousin and
his granddaughter, the cousin's granddaughter.
Yeah, and it's just seeing the daily interactions with these characters, and also
will he kill again?
Will he kill again? Yeah, there's a lot going on in this one.
Yet it's very serene, very meditative, very slice of life, as you said. So everyone,
it's a slicer movie.
It's a slicer movie.
Yeah, it's not like a slasher.
It's just a slice of life. It's just a little slice.
So,
when you cut that slice, there's a little blood.
Tell us a little bit more about what you guys do on your podcast. I just said the title, but maybe everyone didn't tune into your previous guest spots, and maybe people don't know Babylon 5. So could you inform us a little bit more of what you guys are up to?
So we have a...
Ben, you explain, because I have no idea what happens on the show, and I don't remember.
Almost, completed with the show. We're almost done with the show, and Sean, Mr. Bean-like, just kind of stumbles through.
Yeah, I'm just like, what's happening? And you're like, just say this, and they give me a script.
Yeah, Sean has a script.
And I'm just like, all right.
Anyway,
I'll read it. Yeah, everything I say is scripted. Everything else is improv.
It's a episode by episode Babylon 5, the 90s science fiction television show. Watch through podcast where I've seen all of it, and Sean,
and I've seen most of it now. Yeah, but I'm still new. It's still my first watch, but I am.
Sean has
almost done.
3 more episodes to go before he can be as cool
and then I'll
as
get
I am.
The achievement.
Well, you don't really achieve until you've watched the Lost Tales. So Just think about that as you
specifically the Lost Tales.
because that
sure. All right, fair enough. I guess.
Ryan,
Yeah,
I am
fuck.
so excited.
Nothing
I'm
else counts.
so truly excited to watch for the first time with them Legend of the Rangers, because I've seen clips and I've scrubbed through it, and it is famously awful, and I just cannot wait. I really want to
can't wait to
see
see the Babylon 5 circa 2002.
Well, that's the thing. You guys get to see
some
Babylon
2002
5.
energy.
You get to see Babylon 5 in two new ways, post 9/11 and Bush years. So enjoy.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for the Bush era.
But you guys cover B5.
It was after JMS wrote that comic with Dr. Doom crying at the Twin Tower, at Ground Zero, which is one of the things I did not realize. I've made fun of that comic for years and years and years.
Did he?
I had no idea that he had written it
I don't know that.
Just recently.
I know that he wrote the Spider-Man one, right, where Spider-Man is.
I think it's that same comic. I
have no clue. I'm not a comic book expert, although I do know that he reused Techno Mages in Thor, basically the Thor.
I didn't know that.
Because as Guardians,
legendary panel of,
Mages.
It's Doctor Doom, Magneto, and I think Juggernaut, like all crying at Ground Zero.
Juggernaut,
and it's like,
Juggernaut's back,
you
bitch.
Fucking idiot, JMS. I'm sorry. They would love Doctor Doom would love 9/11. Let me just make this clear.
No,
he not only would love it.
Too evil
he would
for
be
Dr.
upset.
Doom.
He would. The only thing he'd be crying over is that he didn't think of it first.
You are going to
be
be so delighted if you ever read JMS's autobiography. He has a whole chapter about
He's
that
so
Spider-Man
proud of it.
story,
He's so
and he says
proud of it.
he says
Sorry.
it's literally his proudest thing he's ever written. So
listen, buddy,
feel free.
JMS. I think you're you're a very talented writer. I respect him a lot. You're dead wrong. You
Sorry, Sean. We've got to move on.
I can't believe you guys are undermining my great synopsis of Martin.
Bartek was still saying it, but you guys couldn't hear him. He was just saying
I finished, but it's like I said all that, and now we have a big tangent. Now does anyone remember what I said?
You said everything about Martin, and now it's time to move on to JMS writing about Dr. Doom crying at 9/11.
I've only seen whatever Ryan's given me from Babylon 5, so I don't know any of that stuff.
They've seen enough Babylon 5 to last a lifetime, but not enough because Lost Tales exists. Now, we are here to talk about the Romero film Martin and its spooky month. On this podcast, we've only discussed one Romero movie before, which was Land of the Dead.
Yes.
One of his later entries of the zombie films, one with some great actors hamming it up, and it was him working, in the 2000s era, and it was delightful. We had a great time with it. And I'm not the biggest aficionado of Romero. I've seen a lot of his zombie movies. I've seen parts of Creepshow, not all of Creepshow, just one of those ones where I saw it on TV one time. I've seen Martin before. This was my recommendation for the podcast. I recommended Martin. I've seen it before, and I wanted to watch it again. I just was thinking about it, and with the movies that we've covered currently this year, I thought it would slot in nicely with the other ones that we have discussed. We just did a movie that was low budget with Coherence, and it kind of made me even more excited to do Martin because this is a low budget film, but it's a character study and it uses the space and uses the locations and it has some interesting ideas. And when I first watched it all of those years ago, it was by just happenstance. It was just something that came across my desk. I don't even know how I stumbled across it. I don't even know if I remembered it was a Romero movie because in my eyes, Romero was like, he's the zombie guy. Ooh, zombies. And I also kind of forgot that this was, a vampire-ish movie, I guess. I always think of it, it's been maybe a decade since I watched it, as this serial killer slice of life thing. If anything, I would pair this up with something like Peeping Tom, which is another great movie as well that we had to watch in university, where it's like these loser guys who the film makes you wrestle with whether or not you should feel for them. And just a great central performance. And I just wanted to come back and discuss it on the pod, and I thought we would bring some people on. Bartek, are you that familiar with Martin, or have you seen many Romero movies over the years?
No, I'm not familiar with Martin other than this one viewing I had. And I've only seen, the original Night of the Living Dead and Land of the Dead.
And did you have any things going in for this movie. I said that it was just his take on a vampire film, but with what you have seen and his reputation and legacy, were there any preconceived notions coming in with Martin?
Not too much. Like, I know that he is very much a codifier in the horror genre, or, you know, he made the first, well, not first zombie film, but he kind of codified what we think of as zombie fiction these days, as opposed to zombie non-fiction. I'm realizing what I just said. So I imagine that this film wouldn't be, you know, a played straight version of a vampire story. This wouldn't be, you know, Dracula from the 30s. I would expect it to be a bit more like Vampire's Kiss or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Now, Sean, I'm keen to know, what is your relationship with Martin? Have you seen this before? Is this something that you're aware of? And when it comes to Romero, do you have that much of a familiarity with his work?
I have not seen this before. It was on my watch list. I wanted to watch it actually because I saw. Honestly, my first Romero movie was recently. It was actually over the summertime. I watched Creepshow for the first time, and I really, really loved it. I had such a good time. I thought it really hit. It really just hit every note for me in terms of like horror stuff that I really like. Like, it's very. It's like a little funny. Like, it's very goofy and kind of strange, but like very mean and dark, and like it kind of nasty. In the way that I like, and had the really great like effects and everything, the Tom Savini effects. So I really like that, and I was like, I've never seen any of the Dead movies, and it's like, or any other Romero movies, and it's like I really should. So I actually watched all of the original trilogy. I watched Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, and I liked them all very much. So I have watched all of those recently. So I was going to watch Martin at some point because I was like, oh, I want to watch more Romero movies. So I was happy that you picked this out because I was like, oh, I wanted to watch this anyway. So that was that's my background. So I was very happy to watch it. It was a good pick.
It was a pleasant surprise, and the lead actor who plays Martin was obviously in some other Romero movies. In Creepshow, he's underneath all of this, prosthetics and makeup. He's in a big zombie suit. He plays like a character's corpse that leaps out of the ground, and that's his IMDb thumbnail even.
Oh, is that who he? I didn't know that's who he was. Wait,
And
which guy is that?
He's like Nathan's corpse. Like, he's a corpse. He's not even like a person in it. He's like a.
Wait, is he the guy? Is he the Father's Day thing?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in that one. And,
yes.
And he's in Day of the Dead.
Where he has the wife's head on the cake.
Yeah, and on Day of the Dead,
so good.
Day of the Dead, he's the sympathetic scientist who gets shot in the head for being too moral.
Yeah.
So fuck you.
That movie rules.
Fucking rocks. Now, Ben Martin, were you familiar with this? Did you know anything about this when I said, hey, I want you guys to come on for this? And with Romero, he's a big name in the film industry. Have you seen much of his work?
So I had not heard of Martin, and my Romero is also with the zombie. I've seen Night and Day. That's it.
You haven't seen Dawn.
Night and Day.
Yeah, I skipped Dawn.
That's the
I was
famous
like,
one
I just
that people
want
love.
Night and Day.
I've seen the remake
I
of
just
that one.
want Night and Day. And
Night and the Day.
The great Cameron Diaz film.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz film Night and Day. We covered it on the pod.
Day.
I
Not
mean,
joking.
and I've seen a little bit of the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn, and it's a shame that he never made another movie after that. Seemed like he was pretty promising. Seemed
Hey,
like that very
come on.
striking opening.
Come on, he made that what's that movie that
Hope Man?
No, the one where they're in a mental institution and it's just him making women into whores. That's the movie. I
That's
can't
a lot
remember.
of
It's like
his
Sucker Punch.
movie.
Sucker Punch. Which
Yeah.
weirdly enough, for all of its faults, did give Oscar Isaac a leg in the industry to be the charismatic fuckboy we know him to be today. Oscar Isaac. So, Martin, the film of discussion, how did you feel about it, Bartek, overall? What was your experiences? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What are your thoughts?
I did like it quite a bit, actually. It was... For a while, it was kind of funny to think that this is a horror film because we do kind of begin with this horror sequence where, you know, he kills someone on a train, covers it up, and then just leaves. And then it's a very long time until we get like the next kill, and we are just kind of watching, you know, this guy's new life in this town. We start to learn a bit about like the residents of the town. We start to uncover, you know, the context behind our main character. And yeah, it's been a little while, I think, since we've done like a little character study film like this. And I knew that it was by a prestigious director, so, you know, hopes were high, and they were fairly well met. Yeah, this was a really good experience.
I'm glad to hear that. Upon my revisit, I was really taken with that as well. Of you open the movie with this very extensive kill scene. He's stalking his prey. He's got these fantasy sequences of how it will play out. These romanticized views of what he's doing being right. And then when he gets down to the murder, it's messy. It's brutal. It's really upsetting, and it puts you in that headspace of you watch this man brutally kill an innocent woman, and then he gets away with it because he's a nobody. Nobody respects him, like nobody cares about his existence. And you spend a very long time then just living with this guy, and it becomes a real struggle because, at least in my eyes, I began to feel for him and feel bad for him and like him and have these complex feelings, but it never left my brain, that opening sequence, because it is unapologetic. And I like how it did that. It didn't make you forget that he was a bad person, but then it also wanted you to spend this time in his life and just see his family dynamics and learn a bit about why he is the way he is. And when it eventually bubbles up into the next kill happens, there's this tension there that is not just this typical slasher movie serial killer tension, but there's this tension of no, don't fuck up your life, Martin. Things are going all right for you currently. Don't do this, which I think is a huge appeal sometimes of these stories where you're following a killer and you're making them someone that you maybe relate to, and you probably shouldn't. And there's this aspect, a lot of TV shows do this where, like your Dexter or your Breaking Bad or whatever, where you have like a person who's a fucking awful person doing terrible things, and you don't want them to, but also you kind of do. It's this balancing act. So on my rewatch of this today, I was really struck by that as well. Just it's very languid in between the high kill scenes. Ben, what was your experience with Martin? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think as you're saying, it's pretty interesting because like it's a definitive choice. That first kill that happens in like the first like 2 minutes of the film is brutal, and like it's very scary, and then it becomes this domestic drama, and you're like, oh, he's just this shy, misunderstood young man, and but that's just kind of lingering in the background. It's like, oh right, he's he does this. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed I mean, this is true of a lot of horror, right? Like that it's supreme low budget worked very much in its favor. Like the cheap film stock, like that desaturated look looked really good. Like that everything was kind of drained of color. All of the like local actors that Romero worked with were all like, I don't know, like all of these like all of the women that came to the shop where Martin works for his elderly cousin. Like I like it too. This movie came out in what, 1978?
Yeah,
and
like 77 or something.
77-ish, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And I believe it was shot in Pittsburgh, which is not like a particularly like exciting or big deal city here in the United States. And so what that does is, as opposed to being like if it's shot in Hollywood or if it's shot in New York, like all the people are kind of dressed like normal people, and they're also like not wearing the most up-to-date clothes for 1977 or 78. Like all the older people are kind of wearing a mishmash of just like kind of 50s and 60s and early 70s fashions. I don't know. It felt a lot more kind of close to life, which is also what gave it so much more power and horror, and also made those scenes of domesticity, that's a tough word, made them a lot more comfortable and interesting.
The lower budget aids the movies. I guess realistic qualities. The film stock is desaturated, and it makes Pittsburgh come across as almost like a not just industrial but dying. I looked at this location, and thanks to the color palette of the movie, as well as just the visuals we see of like the wrecking yard and all of this stuff, I'm just looking at it saying this is a dying place, which comes into play in the narrative with Tom Savini's characters like, you gotta work, we gotta get out of here.
I was gonna say, I'm glad that we got that confirmation that Pittsburgh kind of is this boring-ish place in real life, because that's really how it came across in the film. Like everything they said about it's like, there's no young people here. Everyone here is like middle-aged, and you don't really see children or anything like that. Yeah, it really felt like that in the film.
And later on we see that there's like an underbelly of crime. It's not just him who's ruining the neighborhood. There's other elements as well, and just even spectators of bad things, because it's exciting. Nothing exciting happens in Pittsburgh. I remember, the attitude.
I remember early on when he got off the train and he meets his cousin, and you don't even know he's his cousin yet. He's just, I am Kudo, and he's wearing
weird
this
old man
with this white suit.
Three-piece white suit with shoes that are white.
It's like, is this a David Lynch film? It's funny. Like, you just have this brutal murder scene. It's like, we have to catch another train, and you get all these shots of them like walking, and like it didn't even look like they were going through a train station. It felt like they were going like miles and miles away or something.
Yeah, they were just walking.
They were just going to another platform, and it was like, what is going on here? Like the characters aren't saying anything. He's like smoking this big cigar. Martin's like lumbering behind him.
He goes to the toilet, and there's a toilet without a door, and there's just a guy doing his shit.
Yeah, and no one's confused.
No one cares. It's the standard. Sean, Martin, how did it go for you?
I liked it a lot too. It is very like, I think the thing with the Romero movies that I think really clicks with me is that, his, I guess you could call it the kind of social commentary bent is just very blunt. It doesn't feel like it, and it's always, I think, very smart. Like, I think he has like a very smart way of kind of, handling it. And I think the way it's kind of done here is that, like this guy, we have that really vicious murder scene up top, and then like also like a pretty I would say kind of half vicious and also kind of funny one in the middle of the movie.
I agree with that, Sean. I was that was a very entertaining kill.
It was scary. Like, I mean, for me, it's like I the way I feel about horror, or at least like the way that like horror that really appeals to me is like it's kind of both really scary and kind of really funny almost at the same time, I guess. Like I think people think that those two things don't go together, but like for me that makes a lot of sense. And that scene, especially like when they're just like like he's just they're just trying to like, we need to call 911, and they're like, we can't, like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, I'm cheating on my husband.
And he's fucking with the phone. He's fucking with the phone in the other room.
And it's like, and he's just messing with the phone. And you're like, are you messing with it? Like, no, I'm not. Are you? No. Like, what's wrong with the phone? And then, like, the guy just gets locked out. And it's like, shit. Like,
well, that
and
guy
he keeps,
just
and the
seems
way just
like
Martin.
A dope.
Well, no, he seems
and like,
smarter
and the way
than
Martin
she
just.
did.
Yeah, and like the way Martin just runs in, even like, and it's scary. Again, this is like terrifying. Somebody running in and just
with needles,
like having like a syringe
like
and just like injecting you.
Yeah.
that's scary. Like, that's terrifying.
Like, no,
but it's also like,
hurt you.
but it's also kind of funny. Like he just runs in, stabs, and then runs away. Like he's just waiting for you to fall asleep.
Yeah, that
like,
well, you say it's funny. That seems that upsets me the most, because I have a real fear of like home invasion, and like everything he does is like the embodiment of what I fear, because it's not just like when you say, oh, then he runs away, it's funny. I'm like, that would fucking scare me more.
Yeah. Well, again, for me, it's like it's the two tracks in my brain where it's like I am also really scared of home invasion stuff. So like that, it gets me in that regard, but it's also like I have to recognize that that's also pretty funny. Like I have to like separate myself from it a little bit.
Well, it's not like he's Michael Myers, where it's like you don't follow him. You constantly see what Martin's doing, so you get like his awkward perspective of it.
Also, their house is insane.
Yeah, it's like this very
Yes.
modern. Like the other thing is like they're kind of fun victims because they're 70s yuppies. Like they have like this modern home. And like it's all this glass, it's this box, and like at the time, like it's this very beautiful home for 1977 or whatever.
And that housewife is kind of like a bizarro version of the lonely housewife that Martin forms a relationship with. In a way, Martin is the equivalent of the guy he's chasing down in this scene, where that woman is also fairly well all right in life in comparison to, say, Kuda, who, by the way, that was like one of the camera people's grandma's house, Kuda's house. So all of those photos were family photos.
Utterly unsurprising.
Real
utterly
family photos of
That's,
like...
Yeah, you could really feel that.
And again, it works.
Yeah, every house felt like someone's friend's house, for sure.
And it works.
Yes. But yeah, I like that it was kind of like that character study, which is it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. I think I kind of went in thinking it was going to be just more of like a straight kind of serial killer movie. So I thought that was interesting. But I also like that there was like a cynicism in it. An aspect of it I really, really liked was that he is calling into this
the
radio
DJ.
show.
I knew you were gonna. That's
that.
one of the. That's absolutely, to me, the best. Like one of my absolute favorite parts of this movie.
Yeah, because that's such a. It reminded me so much of like. I mean, it's similar to like Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, when they're watching TV and it's just like you're seeing kind of the way the media is kind of dealing with the zombie stuff, and it's like it's a very cynical take on it, but kind of pretty accurate. And it feels the same way, like somebody calling. I love the idea of like somebody who is obviously like, this should be like, this is a serial killer who is calling it. Yeah. And they're just like, ooh, this goofy guy who's just calling in, he thinks he's a vampire. We're going to call him the Count. And it's like, this guy is talking about murdering women. Like this guy is like very obviously like,
deranged.
Like
a disturbed person.
Yeah, deranged. Disturbed person, and they're just like, ooh, this is fun, and also everyone loves you. Everyone thinks you're so much fun.
Well, they all think it's like a put on.
Yeah.
I think
they think it's like a character he's doing, and it's just like,
but he's sincere.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's not. It's not. And I also think of it in the context also of the 70s, because really like
it's a bleed. It leads.
Like serial murderers, like Son of Sam.
Yeah,
and
serial killers were. This was like
Zodiac
around.
And all that.
Yeah, like Son of Sam was around this time.
Also, how
I think,
media handled the more gruesome things. It bleeds, it leads, even down to the radio DJ was like, yeah, man, you keep talking about this fucked up shit. We don't have the puritanical values of the 50s anymore. Now we want to hear about you raping and killing women. Yeah, awesome. Sexy stuff. Yeah, that's the name for it.
Yeah,
awkward reactions.
And everybody missed him at the end.
But also, Martin, you were like, oh, maybe you feel a little sorry because this guy doesn't get it. But the thing is, Martin delights in the fame of it because he's playing the radio at the same time he's talking to the person on the radio.
Yeah, you hear the delay.
I really like that detail,
which is a great.
And I like that it had the slight delay too, which is very.
Which is
like, I like that a lot.
A piece of filmmaking of it telling you underneath all of this, even though this is Martin perhaps opening himself up in a way, this is also just to, satisfy himself. It's not anything like noble or good or like. It's like, poor Martin should see a psychiatrist, but his only psychiatrist is the radio disc jockey who will listen to him. No. He likes people to know.
The only thing is that usually when you do that, when you call into a radio show and you've got the radio playing, usually it kind of bleeds through, and they got to be like, "Can you please turn your radio down?"
Yeah, that's true. I know. I used to do community.
Feedback.
I used to do community radio, so I know that experience.
So I don't know how he set it up so that it wasn't bleeding through. He must
one of the elements.
Well, how about you call George?
Yeah,
Sean.
Yeah.
From the grave. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to discuss was Sean touched upon it. The cynicism here. One of the brilliant things about George Romero's filmography, especially with the zombie movies, but this slots in nicely too, is he does have a lot of those social commentaries, but it is him struggling with societal like issues and structures. And if you watch his like zombie movies, it's almost like you see him descend into nihilism, where by Day of the Dead, he's like, humans suck. Fucking don't even try to sympathize with them. You know who's the most sympathetic? That zombie over there. And by Land of the Dead, he says, give it to them. Just give it to the monsters.
That
Fuck
film had
it.
like a Jesus of the zombies, right?
Yeah, like they had a hero zombie, and he's like, fuck it, who cares? And I think Martin is a part of that struggle, because at the end, you see Martin realizing like, oh, I put my faith in other people and relationships, and it meant nothing in the end. I should just give up. And I think that's a recurring issue for George Romero in his films of like, how much do you dedicate and put faith into higher powers or other people? And he takes a cynical edge with it a lot more than a hopeful one. Like, I don't leave the film Martin feeling hopeful about things.
A lot of the characters in this film are very stubborn. Like almost like every, I don't know if I want to say every second scene or like every scene with Kudo, it's like Martin will poke fun at his beliefs. Like you have the whole sequence where he's dressed as a stereotypical vampire. It's a costume.
That's a great sequence.
Yeah, and he also even earlier than that, like first time he's at his house, like he eats the garlic, he like takes the cross
and
like
puts it on his face,
rubs it against his face, and it's like, this is all bullshit, and Kudo has like nothing to say. And then the next time you see Kudo, he's right back into
his usual bullshit.
And
every time Martin deflates him, he's almost like Kuda takes it on board and then resets.
Yeah, it's like stubborn and two-faces. I remember also the first scene of Kudo at his shop where like all the women come. It's like, oh, you got that cousin of yours living with you, is he old like you? And it's like they're enthusiastic, and then as soon as he says he's young, they switch on it like, living with your granddaughter, what will people say? And it's like, oh, you guys kind of seemed cool at first, but now, you're kind of like this. And then later on, you get that one woman who's like, nagging at him, like calling him lazy. And it's like, Jesus.
I think that woman, from what I read in the trivia, one of the women, and I'm assuming it's her,
wasn't acting.
was the mother of George Romero's soon-to-be wife who played Christine. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I think that's
it's like
her.
Martin Scorsese's mom.
Yeah, it's that real
Goodfellas.
case of things. But I think the statement that probably rings the loudest for this film in terms of Romero's point of view that rings out in his filmography is there is no magic. That's what Martin says. There is no magic. And that's not just in terms of supernatural shenanigans. You can apply it to so many different things. Romero himself stars in the movie as a priest. He's like the young hip Catholic priest who thinks this is all
the
very
Vatican II priest.
He thinks this is all very, very funny. And Romero didn't do a lot of acting, but I thought he was great. I loved his performance.
I
thought he was
also very
fantastic.
much enjoyed his performance as the hip priest. It's like, we'll do the Latin mass, but
he managed to avoid disappointing Kudo. It's like, oh, I want the priests to say what we want them to say. It's like, oh, I'm not like that, but hey, this other guy. And I love that scene with the other guy.
The old priest,
my God,
the old
that scene's
European
great too.
priest.
No, he was like American, I think.
Yeah, but his name.
Yeah.
He had like a very old, like he sounded like he would have been from Kuda's
it
old
started
country.
like Zed or something like that. Yeah, he kept talking about the old country.
I was just like, I think back on some of these details and I'm like, this is funnier because like I didn't like laugh when I was watching it, but I think back on it and I was like, oh, they go to the mass and it's like, wow, this is a really like run down, like what's with this church? And then they're like, the church burned down.
Yeah.
And the whole sermon is about like getting funds.
And fun fact, that was real. That was real.
Yeah,
That was real church that really burned down.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
Just useful that they had it.
But
that they had a
again,
burnt down
That's
church.
just I'm sorry. It's a very funny detail.
But
Yeah,
I think
it's a great detail.
I think
It
it goes.
burned
I
down.
think it
Yeah,
goes
it's great.
into the whole disillusionment. Even the church is
Yeah.
like invulnerable to just fucked up shit.
And the realness,
Yeah.
the realness in this film is really like heightened by the contrast of all the classic black and white sequences where it's like, oh, this is what a traditional vampire film would look like. It's very stylized. There's like dialogue and performance happening,
Romantic music.
romantic. And the reason why I really love that priest scene is you have a scene of this like very traditional kind of like exorcism, priests like chanting in Latin, and then you contrast that with this regular American priest who feels like he's just reading from his like biblical script or something like that.
And you got Kuda taking it more seriously.
Seriously.
He has the candles and he's shaking.
And it just feels so dry compared to, the heightened performances of the black and white that it's like this is
yeah.
nothing. This is a waste of time. When
I like that scene a lot.
when Martin
just
gets up and walks away, and they don't even stop him. They're just like,
it's just like,
what are you doing?
This is doing nothing.
It's like
wasting my time.
He's really nervous. The priest is obviously like his hands are shaking, like he's kind of older. And then and it's just like it's just such bullshit. Like it's so pathetic.
To Sean's statement about like when you talk about it's kind of funny in retrospect of some of these things, the magic of something like this is how straight-laced it is in its presentation, whether it is from the filmmaking, George Romero's shot compositions, his editing, the music, all of the technicals of this is played sincerely. It's never winking, it's never silly, but when you break down like some of these little scripty elements, it is absurd in a lot of ways, but the performances, some of them are ludicrously over the top, like the guy who plays his cousin Kuda, but also there's a grounded quality to it. And, with any character study film, this is this titled Martin. If you don't have a fantastic performance in that role, then it all falls apart. And you could easily see an essay written about like, Martin is a film that wants you to feel sympathetic towards this misogynistic serial killing, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, the actor who plays him is so fucking good at this role that I am swayed to feel for him. Like, he doesn't need dialogue. Like, most of the time he doesn't even talk. There's great stretches where Martin doesn't say a fucking thing, and yet I feel so much for him. Like, it's about how you present this. Like, you can have silly nonsense up the wazoo, but if you play it earnest and if you have the balance of it just right, it hits a spot so sweetly. And that's what I love about this movie is like when Kuda first shows up, he's like in this fucking ludicrous outfit, and when you get a laugh out of him saying like, "You are Nosferatu, and I'm going to have to save your soul, and then kill you, blah. And if you do this, don't do this." And it's like very funny about how upfront it is. But then you go into his house, and he thinks it's real, and then you have to accept, this is the reality of the movie.
And you're getting all these stereotypes of vampires, like in that scene, like you see the garlic cloves on the door, and he keeps emphasizing like, "You are not invited into this room. You are not invited there." It's like that vampire myth of like, you have to invite them in. He's like really hammering them all home, and that's why when that sequence ends with him like breaking all of them, saying there is no magic, you really start to get the sense of like, this is what we're in for.
And that performance of when he's saying there is no magic is so heartbreaking. Like he's like quivering, his voice, like he's pissed off, but he's also
you get the feeling
upset.
he's obviously had to deal with this shit for his whole life of just being accused of being a vampire and all this kind of woo-woo shit, and he's just kind of just be like, it seems like it's taking a lot of him to kind of get past his kind of barriers to be able to criticize his family member about this, but to just be like, this is all bullshit, which is also, I think, a funny thing, just because George Romero is famous for these zombie movies, to kind of have a character early on just be like, nothing supernatural is happening. It's all magic. Magic is not real. This is all bullshit. Like, it's not like, that's a very and drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, but then also the struggle is that line in the sand is wiped out because Martin, does he believe it still? There are moments where it feels like he does believe he is a vampire, but is that because
he does say that he's like 80 years old at some point?
Yeah, and is it because he's just a trickster, like he's being a little bullshit artist again, or is he actually a vampire, or is he just mentally unwell because he's had like this family with this like group like psychosis about this thing in particular? Like, is he got like a weird Munchausen syndrome thing about with vampirism? Like, what?
The feeling I got from it is that I guess I can't like deny, I can't say like 100% that there's not like a supernatural element to this movie, but I don't think there is. To me, like the impression I got is that he was just raised in this and he's internalized it so much, and he's kind of getting to maybe the age where he's kind of realizing that maybe what was kind of forced on him all his life is bullshit. But he can't fully let it go. And so he still has that. So when somebody asks him how old he is, he's going to say like, I'm like 80 something. Like and even like the stuff where like he has like a taste for blood and like that kind of, you can kind of tell that he's like, and even him like cycling out of the murders kind of near the end of the movie, or like you think maybe he's going to. And I think because to me it like there's kind of a direct correlation where it's like obviously it's like there's plenty of other issues Martin has, and it's not defending him in any way, but it's like this upbringing he's had has contributed to his to what he's doing. And he's like he's almost finding a way out of it, but obviously doesn't succeed, sadly.
In the scenes where he's with his family, especially Kuda, yeah, that's where he's really playing into the whole, like, this isn't real. But then when he's alone with his thoughts, he's kind of falling into those things that he represses in those scenes.
Or with Christine.
Yeah, that's what I mean by his family.
But, like, he switches with her so much. Like, sometimes he's like, yeah, I'm not a vampire. It's all bullshit. I'm like you. I'm young. I get it. It's all silly. And then other times he talks to her. It's like, no, it is real. I am a vampire. It's all fucked up, and you should fear me. I did love Kuda at the beginning being like, do not talk to me. I talk to you when I decide. My granddaughter lives here. Do not talk to her. She will talk to you. I've told her not to.
Yeah, that made me laugh.
That was very
like,
funny.
I told her not to talk to you, but she is going to talk to you. She is not going to listen to me. Like,
listen, I'm a weird old man that no one respects. I just want to make that clear.
She doesn't give a shit what I tell her. But still, if she's going to talk to you, but don't talk back.
His bloodlust thing as well, it's like it becomes ever so clear as the narrative unfolds that he's equated this like need to consume blood for sex, because in the opening when he kills that woman, like, he gets completely naked for a start, and he like lays her on top of him, but it's not. It's like it is sexual, but it's not. But then it gets real sexual when he does a money shot. He like slits her wrist and lets it spray all over his chest and face,
yeah.
and it's really sexual. And
this was
it's really upsetting.
Not to derail too much, but this was the first time I think that George Romero worked with Tom Savini. I think.
I thought they had done
for the effects.
Did they do Dawn of the Dead by this point already?
Dawn of the Dead was after this.
Okay, because I know Martin's
that
actor's also in Dawn of the Dead as well. He's one of the
it was
terrorists at the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think on Wikipedia this was his first acting
it.
performance, Tom Savini.
Yeah, you're right. So Dawn is right after this, but yeah, talking about like prosthetic, like makeup stuff, because Savini does like the blood and the gags and all of that in this as well, like the neck gag where he stabs.
Okay,
the
it was.
through.
I had to look it up. It is. This is the first time they worked together. Yes.
You have the famous Tom Savini, George Romero blood, where it looks like tomato soup. Like it has that really bright consistency, which it doesn't look
bright.
real, but I also like it. It's like that's
very
fun movie
stylized,
blood. Yeah, it's stylized and it works for this vampire movie.
It's interesting too because it is. It's a little more restrained here. I think maybe it was before it was like he realized how much shit this guy could do, right? Because like you get to like by Day of the Dead, you get to him like literally just like the guy getting his head pulled off.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's so good.
One thing I want to call attention to with like the actor who plays Martin is that I kind of thought that it was making a Dracula reference because he's so quiet. And but there's so much emphasis on his eyes. The camera follows his eyes and is framed around his eyes and will be tight on his eyes very often. And that's that was the most powerful weapon in Bela Lugosi's on his belt. If you watch Dracula, they do a lot of that too. Like it's like, his eyes will be framed and he'll be in shadow, but you'll see Bela Lugosi's, seductive and scary eyes. And so it's like, that's another kind of piece of that the movie kind of plays with these tropes. Like it's like, is he or isn't he? Like I'm with Sean. I don't think like the movie plays a little bit with ambiguity. I think that he's someone who has been like somehow mentally tortured by his family into this. But the movie
they talk about
gives
it,
a
they have
little
like
bit
the
of
lineage of it
plausible
too and stuff.
deniability.
It doesn't matter in the end, right? Like some of these movies, people get focused on as like, oh, is it actually supernatural? Is it actually not? And we have movies that do want that to be the discussion piece. While this, it's using that as just the cherry on top of this look at an individual who is trying to be better, but they fail. And that's also a lot of vampire stories too. We see a lot of vampire stories over time where it's like these vampire-like creatures want to not be, but you kind of succumb to that monstrous side of it all. And that's what he's going through. Like, he forms a really nice relationship with this, sad housewife, and he's having sex, and he's actually on dates, and he's doing well, and he's got a good friendship with his family, and he's got his job, and he's no longer calling into the radio station as much. And when he does, it's boring stories now. They're no longer interesting. And so when those things are removed, like, oh, this person's dead, or the sex isn't enough anymore, he gets the shakes again. He needs to do it again. And it's
funny at first, because literally at first it's just like, oh, he stopped because he started getting laid. And he's just like, maybe I don't need to do this.
He's having sex with someone who's alive. Yeah,
he's having sex with someone who's alive,
like
awake.
Awake,
he's doing something normal. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, that was like it was just like, ugh. Like the way he
there was one point where the DJ was like,
oh God.
Yeah, even the DJ was like, all right, buddy.
The DJ is like, oh, well, you're really playing into this fun character that we all love.
It's just like, I want to know who the other people calling this DJ, like in the late night show, because I think that the Count, which is what they call Martin, on the radio show, it's just one of many popular call-in.
The other one's Jessica
freaks.
Walter wanting them to play Misty for her. Like it's that.
What was there was like that guy. There was this guy Art Bell who used to do radio back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he would do like
this is an American
shit.
thing, so yeah.
Is it?
Yes, and he would have people. He would have people call in. There was like this clip I remember of like some guy who claimed to be Satan, and he's like, "Am I speaking with the Dark Lord?" He's like, "Yes, I am." And it's just like shit like that.
Yeah,
and it's just like I feel like it's in that vein of just like, oh yeah, this monster's calling in. Cool. Like let's just go with this. Like
one of my favorite scenes in this is when Christine is leaving. We haven't talked about her that much. We should talk about her. She's really good. I love that performance.
A very important character and a great performance.
Great performance.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, again, she would later go on to become George Romero's wife for a period of time, but I love her scene when she's leaving, and she even says before why she's leaving. It's like, this relationship with Tom Savini won't last. I don't need it to. It's just to get out of here. It's just to escape this mundane life.
Oh, I didn't realize that was
prison.
Didn't click with me that was Tom Savini. That's my bad. I knew he was.
Yeah, he's the boyfriend. He's the hunky boyfriend who's like, hey, let's get. He doesn't have facial hair. That's why you don't recognize.
Yeah,
but when she's leaving, and Martin just says, "You'll forget about me. You'll forget. I mean, you're leaving. You leave to forget. And I'm here. I'll still be here. And you won't remember me. You won't send a letter. You'll be busy. And then time will pass and it won't matter anymore." And I mean, it just captures what this film needs. I know some people may walk into this Romero movie wanting the gore and the monster and the killing stuff. But really, when you look at his films, most of the great material in them is those quiet scenes of characters talking about the really upsetting things. Like in Dawn of the Dead, there's so many scenes like that in which they're just standing in the mall and they're just talking about how life used to be here, now it's not, and it won't be again.
Yeah.
And there's
a long part in Dawn of the Dead where they just play video games together in an arcade. Like they're stuck in the mall and they're like, oh, let's just have some fun. And they just kind of play video games for a little while and play like pinball and shit.
And that's
I mean, like Day of the Dead is mostly conversations. It's just like a little pot boiler in that base. It's like this just a tension builder. Which is also Night of the Living Dead. They're just in the house,
Yes, they're just all in a house together. It's a little party.
And I felt so bad for him because we do get later on, he never got a letter from her. And he is forgotten, and he is forgotten. Like, the only thing he's remembered for is this kooky little character that's not real. Like it is real, but not real.
I think a thing that was interesting, because I actually thought, like, when he first goes to the cousins and everything, and I really thought that I thought that like maybe like the granddaughter was going to get killed, or that the lady he was hooking up with was going to get killed, or really like anybody like close in his orbit, I thought maybe he was going to kill. And I thought it was interesting that not only did that not happen, it didn't even seem like he was even considering it. Like, I didn't get the vibe that he was even thinking about, even like the domineering, the older guy. Like, I thought maybe he was thinking of killing him, but he doesn't really. I don't get the vibe that he ever wants to. It's like always his victims are always just people he doesn't know.
Yeah, once there's a face to them, he can't do it. Hence, when he stalked that old lady down that yells at him all the time, he realized he just couldn't do it because she's a person. It's easy to kill these women when they are these ideas in your mind. Hence, every time he's about to commit a murder, we cut to those black and white flashes of what he perceives this to be, only for then the film to show us the ugly reality. I love the first one in the opening where he romanticizes like her welcoming him with an embrace. Cut to the reality, and she's just leaving the toilets. You hear the toilet flush, and she's got like her face thing on, and she's like blowing her nose. It's like really
the scene is really scary. But it's upsetting. But there was one moment that did make me laugh, and it's when he's attacking her, and she just starts being like, "You stupid fucking piece of shit!
Is this
Fuck you!"
At the beginning?
Yeah,
because there was one part of this, Sean. I'm glad you said this.
Piece of shit. Like
Sean, I'm glad you said this because there's one like that. There's a part of that where she also like kind of groans in kind of a like this shit like it is like rapist.
Like, I have to put up with this shit all the fucking time.
Like she,
like god damn it,
because she knows what he is.
Pricks?
Here we fucking go.
She knows what he is, and then
I just wanted to sleep on the train.
Yeah, she knows what he is, and he pretends not to be that. That's one of my favorite things about it is she knows. She calls him out exactly what he is, and then he goes, "No, I'm not like that at all. You need to sleep. It's fine.
I just want you to go to sleep.
What I'm doing is noble.
I just want you to sleep. I just want you to sleep.
And also, shut the fuck up. Yeah, he's a loser.
He's
such a
wimp.
For a
serial murderer, he is a real wimpy one.
Let's all roast Martin now. Let's roast this dork. Let's check out this wimp. I just want you to go to sleep.
This cute little boy that's going around
just
and killing.
Go to sleep so I can drink your blood.
The film roasts.
I just want you to go to bed.
The film roasts him. He's not a Dexter serial killer where he's supremely skilled. Like he does the kills. He successfully does them, but he's not good at it, and he's a loser. When he first kills that woman,
he's good at covering it up. He never.
To be fair, he's good enough that he doesn't even come. He barely even comes close to getting caught.
Oh yes,
there's never any tension of will the police catch him, except for that last sequence
also,
where he explicitly almost like gets caught.
Yeah, explicitly, but even then, I thought this is a very Romero thing.
Oh yeah, I know.
He's getting chased by the police are coming, and then there are those black guys who just like kind of like start they're there and the police just start shooting at them.
Yeah,
like that's such a Romero thing.
That's a very because it's like
that's how Night of the Living Dead ends. It has Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead has a whole part at the beginning where they're just like there are these this like group like this like black family like some of them turn into zombies and the police are just like let's like murder with impunity. Like they're just so excited to murder them.
Yeah, there's no sympathy. It's like when the cops in this.
It's like when Homer just immediately shoots Flanders in that Treehouse of Horror. It's just like you killed zombie Flanders.
Oh,
he was a zombie.
There's the attention to detail of after Martin commits his first kill, he's trying to leave the train, and people are knocking on that woman's door, and he's worried about it. But then it becomes clear that they're for somebody else. But he can't. He has to push his way past them, and they don't give a shit that he exists. And then when another guy comes over, they give a shit and move for him because he exists in their world. And that's what makes his dynamic as a killer, classic of like he's a wimpy loser. No one notices. Hence, you'll forget about me when you leave because I'm a non-person. The only one who is aware of him is Kuda. Kuda's like, I know exactly what you are. You're these weird set of circumstances I've made for myself. And if you cross any line, I will kill you instantly without saving your soul.
But also,
and that's what makes it tragic because
this is partially my fault. I'm the reason part of the reason this is happening is because I put all this shit in your head, and now you're kind of just you believe
you're
it.
all fucked up because I fucked you up, and guess what I'm gonna do to you?
And it makes it all the sadder because Kuda takes Martin out for something he actually didn't do. But it doesn't matter because it's already decided. I know you did this. Goodbye. Bam. You're out of the movie. That's it. You're done.
His brain is just poisoned by years and years of superstition, and just like and he just in the most brutal way possible. Well, obviously in the Dracula way, he kills him.
Yeah,
but like,
and-
yeah,
and-
like, and it's such a blunt, but it's done so bluntly. Like, there's no romance to it at all. It's just like he just fucking just stakes him right in the heart. And it's just like blah.
That sequence,
it's really nasty.
It is very nasty, that kill.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tangent, but when that happened, like, so suddenly, it almost reminded me of, like, old adventure games where, like, when you get a dead ending, it's like, oh shit, it's really quick. Now I have to
here we
load
go,
my
here we
save
go.
file and make a different decision
It was
to
like a
avoid
bad
that.
ending, yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you're just hit with this reality of like, oh no, this you can't go back from this. This is the end. You made a very simple,
Can't go back
innocuous
to an
mistake
earlier
of getting together with this woman who
save
killed
file.
suicide.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Forgot to
Game
pick up a
over.
boot in the desert.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say too. It is a juxtaposition to how he kills people. There's like the long, elaborate deaths to these innocent people, and then at the end, it's a quick succession of just sudden death. Like this woman died, and then this happens, and then he gets killed by his own family, just like that. And with the deaths of people in the real world or people you know, it can be very much that like whiplash effect. And while Martin doesn't view any of the kills like that throughout the movie, he's just like, no, I helped out. I needed to do this. It was for me. It was romantic and sexual and beautiful. And then we get into the back half, and it's like the film is demystifying all of it, including for his own death, where he doesn't even get a chance to defend himself, just like the women didn't get a chance to defend themselves against him.
No.
And so he's dead. He's gone. Kuda regrets nothing.
when you
No, he's putting the rice on it or the
Seeds and
like,
stuff, or whatever.
Yeah, the seeds. Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, because he's just like, I killed the monster.
Yeah.
and I'm gonna get
As-
rid of it.
I'm a good
Like, that's all.
person.
as soon as you see the shot of like him holding the stake and has a little hammer in his hand, you already know this character. You know he's stubborn at the beginning of scenes. He's in his full confidence mode of like, I'm doing the right thing. You know that this is the end, and then it just happens, and yeah, it happens.
And weirdly enough, it's through no fault of Martin
Yeah,
that this event happened to him.
Tragic irony, yeah.
I would say, really, I would say probably the most upsetting and sad part of the movie for me was the lady he was hooking up
Oh,
with,
that was very
committing
sad.
suicide. That was very sad, and it was just so like, because he didn't have anything to do with it, but it was just like, it's just rough. It was sad, and like his sadness too, I think, was very like, you could kind of feel that. I'm not saying it necessarily made him. I mean, he is, in a way, you can empathize with him, even though he does a lot of terrible things. But like, it is very just like yeah, that was like a very that genuinely very sad. I would say that was probably the saddest moment in the movie for me.
Yeah, I like the whole plot between the two of them. It was one of my favorite parts of
Yeah.
the film. Yeah, just
I always think it's interesting when I think it's interesting when a killer in a movie has like a normal romance almost.
Mhm.
Like if you've seen the Michael Mann movie Manhunter.
I was going to say in
the-
Heat, there's one too.
Well, yeah. I mean, Michael Mann, I guess, just does that a lot. But the killer in Manhunter is like a pretty disturbed dude, but he does have a lady that he gets together with, and it's
well,
like
that's the
it's
plot in the
oh.
book too. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
well, yeah, exactly. And it's just like, it's seems like he could have been happy. If, like, you kind of get that, because I think it's just a usual thing for a lot of like serial killers for them to be just like total loners who just ever like completely disconnected and like freaks. So it's interesting to have them. He has like a somewhat genuine kind of warmth with.
He has emotions.
with her.
He does have emotions
Yeah.
as much as he tries not
Yeah.
to. At times he does, and he forms connections as much as he doesn't want to. Thus, when Christine leaves, thus when this woman kills herself, he just goes into this cynical mode of like, it was all for nothing. I shouldn't have done any of it.
It's
What's the
just
point?
like, well, of course this happened.
Yeah.
Like that's his feeling of like, I didn't even have anything to do with it. Like he says that like
It's like, well,
kind of
this
like,
is why I don't ever do this. This is why I don't do the sex. Like, doesn't he
Yeah.
call it like the sex thing or something?
yeah, the sexy thing. He's
Yeah.
a child.
Yeah.
the sexy
He's
thing.
a child.
Yeah.
that's the big
Yeah.
point of their whole dynamic, where she's the normal for her age, like has had relationships, knows how it works and all that. He hasn't, and that's kind of the dynamic they're going with, where like in their first scene, I really like the point where she said like, you're like a cat, you just like listen to me, and from that point on, like I had that in my head, and yeah, that was kind of what was going on. His weird reaction.
That was a good description of his character.
His weird reaction to like getting pet on the head and then he runs away. And even there was that one scene, it was the scene just before it cut to them like in bed, where she's talking about like, oh, we're gonna go and do this thing now, and then he just bluntly says like, I know that you just want like leading into sex, and I'm ready.
You want me here for sex?
I'm
right?
ready, and I'm ready to do that now.
Let's do
and
it.
Cut to and having it done, and
I like that scene when they were.
That bluntness is generally pretty good.
Yeah,
people like honesty.
I thought the conversation.
You know what? Martin's great. I think he's a really good person. You know what? I want to just put everything aside, folks. I think he's great. I
just think
endorse
he's
him.
neat.
Would you?
I just think you gotta take
give him a lap pillow.
To me, it's like if he was running in an election, I'd vote for him.
That's a tug of war.
He has my vote.
That is the tug of war, though. We're making jokes like he's a horrendous person, but I also liked him. I wanted good for him.
Listen, you don't have to agree with everything. Some things you gotta, say, I don't agree with that, but I do agree with a couple.
I like
things.
that scene when they were in the field.
In the field,
and he's like resting on her, and she's talking about her problems and her life, and he's actually opening up. He's not just just in there blank face. He's like making jokes, and he's entering that boyfriend phase. Like he's actually being a bit more of a committed partner rather than just like this automaton who's like, yeah, sex, right? This is how it works, and you're just here for this. Or when she says like, if you don't like it, you can leave, and he just leaves the car. And she's like, no, I was talking about.
Oh
that
yeah, that was funny. And she's like, no, I wasn't talking about you. That was funny. Like he just opens the door and it's just like,
okay, bye.
I like how George Romero handles characters in his films. There's this warmth he has to them. Like I love women in his movies are very good characters. They have lots like they can really anchor a lot of the genre hijinks. Like Christine, we've talked about her a bit. I think it would be good to talk about her a bit more. Like she was probably my favorite character in the movie. I love Uda because he's like this absurd, over the top thing, but you need Christine there to bring it back down. Like she's just a woman of the times. Like she's just trying to do the right thing by her family, but also she hates it. She thinks it's stupid. She argues against it, but you're fighting against the ocean, really. Like you can't win it.
This is probably a weird thing to compare it to, but it's like the daughter in Coneheads. How she grew up in the Earth Society, so she's like halfway between the weird aliens and also real life.
I used to watch Coneheads a lot as a kid. I don't know why.
That's one of my favorite Michael McKean performances. He's great in that movie as lead antagonist.
Better Call Saul.
No. His best role is X-Files, but let's get real.
Chris Farley's in that movie.
Oh yeah, everyone's in that movie.
Coneheads movie.
Fucking
guys,
Jan Hooks is in that movie.
Guys, this is the part where we talk about women. Put the men aside.
Yeah, put the men aside. Let's talk about Jan Hooks and Coneheads.
Let's talk about the women of Coneheads.
Yeah, obviously Jane
really
Curtin.
Like all the Jane Curtin's great.
She got her role in Third Rock from the Sun, which gave us so many great things. But Bartek, what did you think about Christine? What were some of those moments or scenes or observations she had to give that connected with you? We've
already talked about the first establishment of her. It's like, I've told my granddaughter not to talk to you. She will anyway. And that gave you an idea already that like, okay, so this character is not going to be quite as on board with the whole supernatural family traditions. And yeah, she has her first scene is just, even though our main character is not talking at all, is being completely awkward and would like put anyone off, she completely kind of gets where he's coming from, and she's like constantly building up conversation to the point that when he finally does talk, it like doesn't even shock her. It's like, yeah, I finally formed a bit of a connection with you. I would like a phone, so she organizes to get a phone for him. And she has all sorts of like audience surrogate rants about like, this is all crazy, this is all bullshit, we have to get away from this, or something like that. And yeah, it really draws you to her because she's kind of speaking for you.
I don't know what it is about the 1970s filmmaking with your kind of domestic dramas or your films following a loner, but there's just they capture that quaint, mundane aspect of life where it's exhilarating on a dramatic level that she's this nice person, but when Martin is on his own and he hears her in another room having these innocuous but heated arguments with her boyfriend, I find that very illuminating about her character. Like, there's just something about those moments where she is, in other scenes, almost like this voice of morals and reason and this shoulder for Martin to lean on. But then she has her own life outside of those scenes, and we just hear them in other rooms, and it's just life. It's nothing spectacular. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But to see or just hear that side of her, I find to be something that just gravitates me towards her even more. And I love how this era of filmmaking just could capture that, because I imagine this movie nowadays would be like a mumblecore type movie, but there's just something about how it's handled.
I'd love to see a mumblecore.
Yeah, well, yeah. What's
movie.
that Tilda Swinton vampire movie with Tom Hiddleston?
Yeah.
That's this.
Oh wait, what was that called?
Yeah, you know,
I am working on a mumblecore.
The Jim Jarmusch vampire movie. Like, it would be that, basically. Martin Core. But you know what I'm saying, Bartek? Like,
no, yeah, I had a similar thing. Well, it's pretty blatant in this. The scene right after Martin has sex with his girlfriend, and she's, you know, really sad, and she's trying to tell him, like, no, it wasn't you, it's something with me. It's like we never really get a clear-cut idea, of what exactly it is she's going through, but you can tell it's something, you know, really deep and personal.
In a weird way, to go back to a movie we've covered on Spooky Month, this was obviously later on, but it reminds me of the scenes in between the heightened shenanigans of Reanimator. Like, Reanimator would have all of the body stuff and all the crazy Jeffrey Combs stuff, but in between, you would have Barbara Crampton just playing this as if it was like a domestic drama. And I just love how it works with her. And I should get it right. Her character's name is Christina. The actress is Christine. I don't care. They're both, it's basically her.
Just call her Chris.
Just call her Chrissy. But yeah, Sean, for you, what did you think of like this character overall? Because in a way, she's the voice of reason. She's the audience surrogate, and also perhaps even the heart of the movie. And she just up and leaves at a certain point. She just says, "This plot is too much for me. I'm going now."
This is too weird. You guys are too weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked her. Yeah, she was probably my favorite. I really liked that she had very much like a bluntness. Like, she was. I feel like she was kind of there in a lot of ways to kind of like. She did a really good job of kind of like contextualizing things and just being like, yeah, this Kuda guy, this is all bullshit, and he's really like damaging Martin and kind of making everyone in the family's lives worse by this shit. But I also like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like, I think I like about Romero movies is that there's very much like a very honest kind of bluntness in like the way people talk, like the dialogue. Like, he's not afraid to have just a character just go, "This is a load of bullshit. Like, this is this sucks. This is horseshit." Even
You're not
stuff with
deal
like,
with
yeah,
that,
like
right?
you said, yeah. But even stuff like her, like you said, like her having the argument with her boyfriend over the phone, which just felt like a very real couple argument that they were having. Like, it felt very sincere, that the kind of argument they were having. I really liked that. And again, I was worried that she was going to get killed. It really felt like oh, that would sadly like kind of make sense and be kind of what you would expect from a movie like this. So I liked that was not what happened. I really liked that it was like, yeah, she just kind of is like, she just leaves and leaves Martin, and that affects him, and her just like, I don't know, her caring about Martin, like her very genuine, it really seemed like she very genuinely felt for him as like a family member. I thought it was sweet.
And then she forgot him and left.
Yeah, she forgot him forever.
Maybe the letter was still in transit.
I don't think so. I think
you weren't even born yet, Ryan. You don't know.
She went to a different movie.
She went to a different movie. Changed the channel. Yeah. She was interesting. I thought she was her acting was also just so uncanny in how realistic it was when she was reacting to his little magic trick at the table with
Oh, that
Oh
was so
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
that
That made
did
me really
happen.
uncomfortable. Yeah, but it was like, yeah.
but like the way she would like laugh, and she just did certain acting choices that I feel like you don't see as often anymore. Like there's just certain little ticks or certain little things that you get out of these, these grittier, lower budget films. Like she would just do a little giggle or a little snort or something before she would say a line, and it just made me feel as if I was sitting in the room with these people as they're just doing this little rinky-dink magic trick to prove to this old man that magic isn't real. It's all illusions. It's all fake. And he still doesn't get it. He's still like, fuck that. Fuck
No,
that
I don't know.
bullshit.
I think in that scene they should have had like an exhausted teenage girl who's just like, you're a creep. I think that would have been more emotionally effective.
And I mean, we kind of discussed it, but I think the big set piece of the movie, like the big elaborate bit, is the home invasion when he stalks that woman and he thinks that she's like this perfect ideal life, and she is actually having an affair on her like with this guy. And
Yeah, again, I
And that
really
guy
thought
is
it was.
such a wiener.
It's so. It is
That
just
guy is
really
such a
funny
wiener.
when
That's
he goes
my
in there and he's
favorite
like,
part.
"Who are you? You're not supposed to be here."
I think
Oh, the
yeah,
guy
like-
also apologizes because he thinks that
Yes.
Martin's the husband at
Yeah.
first.
That was a really good detail.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really liked that when he was just like, "Hey, man, we don't have to. This doesn't have to be a thing." And then she's like, "No, I don't know him."
that's my favorite line in terms of gives me the like makes my skin crawl, because the way she says it, but just the idea of, there's this stranger comes in and the protective male figure next to you is like, oh, apologizing to them, and you have to say, I don't know him, know him,
Yeah,
and it's
he-
like, oh,
He's in, oh shit, the husband's here. I have to,
Yeah.
apologize. And
no,
then-
I don't know this
Because you would
man
immediately
with
go
syringes.
with, yeah, because the idea of it being just like a home invasion is like kind of like that's not what your mind would immediately go to in a lot of those situations. It would be just like, oh, well, that makes sense. It would be the guy, the husband or whatever. But it's just like, oh, and then it's just like this slow realization that something really fucked up is happening. Like it's just like total panic.
It'd be like
it's
if-
so. Yeah.
If a big scary guy with a weapon walks into the room, I'm like, oh, Ryan, is this your dad? And I go to shake his hand. It's like, no, that's not your dad. That's my dad.
But again, Martin is unassuming. He came to her door earlier and pretended to be like a deaf mute, and so she gave him pity and sorrow. And then here he is again inside the house, and she realizes like halfway through, it's like, oh, this is that loser I saw earlier. He's stalking me. This is a plan. Oh no! And everyone handles it poorly. Like it's not this elegant kill. He lets her live is the thing. He's like, you know what?
Well,
You've suffered enough.
everything went wrong because the aforementioned wiener was not meant to be there.
He was jealous. He was jealous that he said, like, when he was dragging the guy's body, he's like, you weren't supposed to be here. How could you do this? You ruined it.
It's just a total mess.
Then he
Like,
has to-
nothing goes right.
And he even tells her,
Everything
like,
goes horribly wrong.
you're going to live now.
That house, it has doors upon doors,
It's a
stairs upon
very
stairs.
has a game room. He's down in
Yeah.
the game
It
room.
reminded me of it's like that scene in Goodfellas when like they're showing off their like extremely 70s rich person house.
Yeah.
And
right.
it's just like all this like chintzy bullshit that just looks awful. And it's just like, yeah, it's like that.
Could you
It
imagine?
really reminded me of that.
Could you imagine trying to do that whole set piece in like your house, Ryan, where there's
No.
only a few rooms? It's like, oh no.
They did have one of the things I loathe in real life, which is they have an option of two doors that open in on each other. Because he stabs her in that, like, what is that? Fucking a little void of a room between. And they have these doors right next to each other, and they open up in a way where they smack into each other.
They both open into this
Yeah.
little like half a meter by half a meter room.
Yeah, and it's just a nightmare. That house was gorgeous.
Small than a shower.
Gorgeous house. Loved every little bit of it. It was a great set piece. It's the big horror bit of the movie, and I know some people really don't care for Martin because they want it to be what it says on the tin, George Romero's vampire movie, and instead it uses vampirism to deal with other topics rather than ghouls are running after us and killing us, and we
He's
need
like,
our Van
"Listen,
Helsing figure.
I'm a zombie guy, but I'm not a fucking vampire guy." That's what he's saying. He's like,
Yeah,
you know
so
what? Fuck vampires. Vampires are fake. Zombies are real.
I like sci-fi. I don't like science fiction. I like fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like science fiction. So that's
There are those things, right, where you have those filmmakers whose thing is like a certain blah blah blah, and they're like, but I don't do this thing that's like tangential. It's like, oh, I do zombies, but don't you fucking get me to do a werewolf movie? Fuck you. Like it is. It also, I
I
guess,
haven't seen enough werewolf movies. I gotta watch more werewolf.
well, you got to watch more werewolf movies. That's your curse. The family curse is Sean's werewolf.
Not enough mummy movies either.
Not-
I see more mummies.
Well, there's the Tom Cruise mummy movie. You could watch that,
Yeah.
directed by
Yeah.
Alex
Yeah,
Kurtzman.
the beginning of the Dark Universe. Yeah, of course I know that.
And again, credit to George Romero. He was known for being like the monster guy, like the monster. But basically, everyone stole from him. Like the zombie stuff, a lot of the blueprints are from his stuff, and it takes off. And later on in his career, he couldn't get movies made. He couldn't get movies made to save his life. He had to get, like, the success of the Dawn of the Dead remake allowed him to be relevant again enough to get funds to make movies.
Like, it wasn't Land of the Dead like the return of him?
Yeah. He was still making movies, but it was a struggle. It was always a struggle to make movies. And in the end, he had to make zombie movies because that's all people wanted from him. And it's just such a shame, because Martin is a great example of he was a good filmmaker, a good storyteller. I think his strength is editing. He was very good at grabbing all of this footage he could get on his low budget and compiling it into something potent. And
there's
I kind
some
of
pretty crazy quick cuts at the start of the movie that I found very striking. Like just in the very opening in the train scene, some very, very like just interesting editing that I found quite striking. I mean, this is also a movie that was cut to 90 from what, like a 2-hour cut?
I think it's like 3 hours of a director's
yeah, like there's a
cut
much
that-
longer.
Yeah,
like
it was
the
a much
director's
longer
cut,
cut,
is,
yeah.
which I don't know is out there, or like there's an
Bits of
Italian
it.
version that's
Bits
slightly
of it are
different.
out there.
or,
So the
like,
Italian version,
something-
there is an Italian version in which the music is different. It's reusing lots of score from Goblin. With their stuff from like Suspiria and elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh.
But I love
Goblin.
the music in this too,
Goblin.
by the way. Like
Yeah,
the
the music
music
is awesome.
It is
so-
really good. It's really unsettling. Several scenes I was just like, it's just a very creepy vibe.
But it's
the
also melancholic. It's real melancholy.
Yeah.
Like when we end the movie, it just has this lilting effect to it. I thought it was a real character in itself. But is there any other moments, elements, things of the film people want to bring up or discuss? Bartek, anything else for you first time through?
Give me some more time to think of it. Let's turn it to our guests.
B5 boys, anything else of Martin that you want to mention?
You know, it was just it's a movie that I had absolutely no idea what to expect. And then like, and it was so destabilizing, as I said earlier, like this really brutal opening, though it did have the thing where the woman goes, ugh, which made me laugh. But then after that, I'm like, is this what the movie is? And then it's like a half hour of like house, like just kind of, here's an awkward teen, isn't he weird scenes. And what's really striking to me about the movie is that somehow all of that put together works. Like there's, and I think you said earlier, Ryan, like there's all these different pitches of performance in like from the actors in the movie, and somehow that also works. Like just it throws so many different types of speeds and types of movie and what it's doing at you, and in the end you watch it and you see that final scene and like the credits is all the various people calling the radio show, and it's like, wow, somehow this all cohered in a really interesting and entertaining way. I'm like very impressed.
Yeah, my last real thought is I really love that ending a lot. I really like the radio like having the people calling in set to him Kuda burying Martin is so just like it's such a sad, brutal image. Again, really reminds me of Night of the Living Dead a lot. Very similar kind of ending. But yeah, I thought it was very well done, and I think like the very last line of like all the people calling in is someone just saying like, "Oh yeah, I know the Count. Yeah, he's a guy I know." Like,
Yeah.
So it's already become like it's just like this thing of just like he's just kind of it's as if he never even existed in a way.
And at the end,
Like,
you
it's
have
just like
someone doing like an affectation of his voice, being like, "I'm the Count now." It's like
yeah.
And they get accused of being
it just-
Polish or something.
yeah.
yeah, it's I really like
Yeah,
that.
I guess
you know what? It's a good movie.
I guess I'm the same way. That ending where you're contrasting our main character who we followed and have, I was going to say fully understood, but fully understood in the context of what the movie shows us of him. We understand who he is in that regard, and now we are getting this, like, legend. He's turned into this legend, which obviously there's a lot of falsities there, and that's what he will be remembered for, or more likely remembered for a little while before being forgotten.
He's the legend.
Or replaced with some other freak.
He's the legend that Kuda believes in. Everyone believes in even though he laid out for them on the radio that this is not how vampires work. At the end, everyone still thinks of him as like the vampire, the Count, like Kuda did.
Like the superstition wins. Like basically like the Kuda win. Like he kills the vampire, and then like the legend of the vampire lives on.
Yeah, you know what?
And so
I don't think George A. Romero had a very high view of the world around us. I think he thought it was pretty rough stuff.
I don't know.
This was his favorite movie, by the way. This was his favorite of
I heard
his
that.
films,
Oh,
and
that's interesting. I can see that.
That's not surprising.
it's not
I
surprising.
can see
It
that.
feels like it's a little
absolutely.
more of like a it
has
feels
a
like
lot
a
of
little
heart
more of
in
like
it.
a personal movie.
And
Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, I think on a technical level, although a cheap movie, obviously, because he always had low budgets, I think it's his most competent film as well. I think it adheres together very nicely. I think it was great. I like Martin. I'm glad that we all got to visit it and talk about it today. It's something that many people don't even know exist. I think Romero, as important and as influential as he was as a filmmaker, I do think he still gets sorely overlooked in the importance in this industry he had. He was a voice, he was a talent, and he's the ultimate idea of like a filmmaker. Like he was in severe debt when he made this movie. Like it was a real tough time to get movies made, and that's just how it is for a lot of people. And although he made films that their titles alone, as well as his name, live on, it didn't guarantee him success to make movies easier. Isn't that strange? Like this movie was as difficult to make as movies he would go on to do over the next few decades afterwards. Usually you think it would be easy, like it would be things would open up, but it really didn't do that for him, and it's kind of a sadness there. But also I think it just lends credence to his bitterness in his movies. It just kind of gives it more. Like when you get to Day of the Dead and it's just everyone gets fucking brutalized, and it's like, who gives a shit anymore? Like he's really upset about it.
Can't get a big budget like the crew behind Coneheads.
Yeah, or when he even did Land of the Dead, which he got stars for, it still was just like, fuck it, just who cares? Just let the monsters have it. I like Martin. I think people, if you haven't watched it after this discussion, you should still watch it. It's out there. It's available to look at. It's definitely got a lot of charm to it. And that is our discussion for that. We are moving on to listening people's recommendation for Spooky Month. And Bartek, how about you tell us the listening person who's recommending it and what film they have lobbed our way to end Spooky Month on?
Yep. So a friend of mine who I've recently reconnected with, Nelson, has recommended for us the 2022 Australian horror film Talk to Me.
Which is a new film. Like, it was
that's
in
new. I heard
theaters
about that.
relatively
I've been
recently.
meaning to see that.
Apparently, it's considered 2022 because it was shown
Film
at like
festivals.
an Adelaide Film Festival.
That's how it works.
But it's only
I didn't know that was Australian.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
made by a YouTube channel called Rucka Rucka.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Rucka Rucka guys directed and wrote this. They're known for their YouTube channel for action stuff. So they have a famous video in which it's like Ronald McDonald comes to a McDonald's and starts a brutal fight with children. Like he beats them to death.
Okay.
And they're known for like really competent filmmaking. Like they've been on YouTube for basically the whole time. Like they've been there for a very long time, and they do special effects. And so they've made their first feature film, and weirdly enough, it's a horror film. People
Yeah.
are expecting like an action movie because they are action guys. Obviously, some gore effects are in their work as well, but here they are with a horror movie.
Yeah, at first when I mentioned like, oh yeah, Nelson's recommending this film, you and another friend of ours, Will, were confused because it's currently in theaters for most
I looked;
of us.
it was in theaters until like this week.
Yeah, that kind of threw me off. Like, but it's from 2022. But it's like, oh no, only in Adelaide for that film festival. It seems. So
That's how they work because of award seasons. These stuff like they show them and they want awards. Yeah, the industry bullshit. But that is what we'll be talking about. That's in the title too. And I don't know anything about it other than the behind the scenes of who made it. I'll be honest. It's got one of those classic like scary movie posters of the modern age where I look at it and go, I don't want to watch that. But then I know.
Is it like because you think it's too scary? Or you
No,
scared by the
I don't get
poster?
scared by movies. Honestly, it's just one of those like,
Or
oh
by
yeah, it's a
posters.
Blumhouse affair. Like it's one of
Oh, I
it's one of
see, I
those
see.
like it's look at the poster and it's a creepy hand with like writing all over it. Ooh, and I'm like, yeah. We've got a glut of these, but I'm interested because the people behind it, and I've heard good word of mouth. So we'll be talking about that next on the pod. If you can, make sure to watch it. Apparently it is now on streaming platforms and digitally available. So you have no excuse now. Last Best Babylon 5 podcast, boys. Thank you so much for coming on. We hope to get Steve on at some point. I thought we'll shuffle up the deck. We'll get Sean and Ben on the podcast. Bartek was like, we get it. Is it Steve again? I'm like, no.
No, he's
Steve,
banned.
It's enough of that guy.
I
enough
don't
of
know
that
what
guy.
Steve's taste in horror is. I've got a better feel for you two because you talk about it more. I'm like, Steve is like a comedy guy, I feel, more than anything else.
oh,
I
Coneheads.
don't know. Who
He would love
knows?
Coneheads.
You should watch Coneheads with Steve.
Yeah, just talk. Yeah,
It has Kramer
just
in
get
it.
Get him here to talk about Coneheads.
It has
And-
Michael
and
Richards
also
in it.
he'll defend Michael Richards.
As we all
know?
should.
Yeah. Steve was
yeah.
like really emphatic about defending Michael Richards, and I just thought it was a little
It
like
also
that's a
has-
weird hill.
it also has
Weird hill to
Chase
die
too.
on, but he was like, "I will die on this."
He
hill.
lost
Die
his
here.
job because he defended Michael
Yeah.
Richards.
Coneheads
He's like-
unironically
yeah.
has David Spade's best performance in any film, so I will give it that. He is just so funny in that movie. It's like Michael McKean's mincing assistant. It's just so,
I
which
can't
would
wait.
give him
Folks,
great success.
I'm gonna go back and watch. Folks, check out Coneheads. 19.
Yeah, we're not promoting our podcast. We're promoting
Yeah.
Coneheads.
Just check out Coneheads.
1992.
Check it out.
or
Last
whatever.
Best Coneheads.
Last Best
Yeah.
Coneheads, in
laugh.
which you do
It'll make you laugh.
Coneheads.
If
and
you just,
see-
we all need a laugh.
Coneheads
nowadays. Check out
Minute.
Coneheads.
But yes, you can find our podcast as well as Last Best B5 on all of those podcasting sites. We include information in the description of our episodes, such as social media plugs. We are on Facebook and X, Bartek, X, which as each day and each week passes, it becomes more and more irrelevant and annoying to use, by the way. So there's that. We have our email address if you want to contact us directly, and hell, even recommend a film. We have a list, and we need some more recommendations. We're getting close to being in the single digits again, so you should lob some our way. You can email us over at,
spitandpolished@gmail.com.
and that is all of it. Sean, Ben, thank you so much for coming back on. I'm glad that this all worked out because last time we had you guys on for movies. We gave you like really over the top genre absurd movies, and I was like, are they going to be happy with this really muted?
I loved those. Loved that movie last time. I like
Yeah.
this movie.
Tears
so
of
it
Black
worked out.
Tiger.
And Sean got a
Tears,
wacky
yeah.
Czechoslovakian movie, which
Yeah.
could have been
Yeah, I
in
like
one of
that movie.
those. So
Oh,
he could have been
that one.
Einstein in that movie. There's no evidence to say he wasn't.
Yeah.
Funny thing, I believed he was like a European guy, Kuda. I was like, okay, where did Romero find this fucking old he's just some New York guy. He's just some New York I believed him.
So it was a Londo.
He sounded like my pop. Like, hence I was like, are they Polish? I don't know. Like, I thought his accent was pretty good. And also, he just looked like an old European freak. So I believed it. You got me, mister. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, remember to be spooky to one another in this time of need.
For one final time.
For one final time,
year.
or Bartek is going to mess with your phone. And phones in the 70s used to make real sci-fi noises when you press the button, like...
Oh, that was weird.
Lasers.
Great sounds.
Is that an American thing? Does that still happen? What was the deal there? Was
no
that just
idea.
George Romero being a little funny guy?
Yeah, guys,
No
pick up
idea.
your
It was
landline
very
phones right
strange.
now.
Okay,
It was America, but it was 1977.
Okay,
So basically it was
Sean,
a different universe.
Could you phone up your parents and say, hello, parents of mine? Could you answer this question about phones?
We were all doing Quaaludes at the time.
Yeah, they were
as
doing too
was
many
the fashion.
Quaaludes.
We were doing lewds.
Ludes.
Yeah, they're at Studio 54. I don't know what they were doing.
Earlier in the episode, when you guys were talking about the DJ, I wasn't saying anything because I was laughing to myself because I was picturing an alternate universe where they made like a Martin video game adaptation. And I was imagining like the DJ is like the tutorial guy.
Oh, yeah.
Or like
yeah,
when
yeah,
you're driving around and you hear him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought he would be like a Leisure Suit Larry type character for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Count, when you hold down the R1 button while steering the car, you can do a handbrake
It would be like the Warriors video game where they bring back a lot of the remaining cast to do the stuff.
That's actually what I was thinking of, because like the DJ in the Warriors is like the game over voice, and like
Oh.
every level she has like a unique line about like, you know, the Moonbreakers really got the Warriors this time.
And in this one, he would say, yep, you can count me out. And then just it ends.
Yeah, you die, and he's like, oh, the count hung up.